else is up to.
Great. Well, that we may have some others joining us, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Kathleen Dent, and I am the co-founder of Inspired Classroom. My other co-founder, is Allie Depew. We are educators by trade, so either came up through the ranks of the public schools or as a more informal educator, art educator. That's Allie's background. And we have had this company for the last 8 years, helping our partners bridge the gap between their amazing content and the classrooms. And about 3 years ago, embarked on building software to help further the reach and the impact. And so we are so glad you joined us today. And so, like I said, what our goal here is just have a conversation, a professional conversation, and really just hear from some of you and also some of our great mentor partners about what you're doing, start that conversation and get some ideas going, and then offer anything we can do to help. So today we're going to have as guests from the Missoula Art Museum here in town, longtime partners, Kay Grissom-Kiley and Jenny Bevel, and they have been working really hard to extend their outreach, especially to rural and underserved students, and they've done a phenomenal job. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jenny and Kay, let them introduce themselves, and then Allie's going to kind of interview them and ask some questions. But anytime you guys have a question, just jump in, and we'll also have some questions for you at the end. So Allie, here you go.
All right, Kay and Jenny, take it away. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell them a little bit about what you do with the Missoula Art Museum.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kay Grissom-Kiley. I'm the Curator of Education at the Missoula Art Museum, and the Missoula Art Museum is a contemporary art museum. And we are located on the far western edge of the big state of Montana. So about midway up or down. And yeah, so I oversee and help run all the education programs, interpretive programs here at the Missoula Art Museum. And then my fabulous colleague, Jenny Bevel, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, hi everybody. Kay and I work very closely together. My title is Educator and Outreach Specialist. So I'm more on the curriculum development side and overseeing the teaching artists and the docents and our interpretive strategy, which we all contribute to at the Missoula Art Museum. And so yeah, that's my role. But our team and curatorial, I should say this, at the Missoula Art Museum, we are a small staff, and our curators have welcomed education to be involved in developing exhibitions from the very beginning. And this is really special. As some of you may know, it's not how things are normally done at art museums. And so Kay and I are in on all the meetings where exhibitions are chosen and exhibiting artists are, we look through the proposals with curatorial. And so it really helps us be very connected to the themes and the artists. And our mission is really to amplify those artists' voices.
Awesome. So that's a little bit about the museum. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your education outreach programs at the MAM.
Sure. Well, the one we're going to talk about today mostly is called Museum as Megaphone. But we also do a variety of, most everything is funneled through Museum as Megaphone as a virtual platform, because Montana is such a large state, and we are a contemporary art museum. I feel like so many people don't even know about us just because people live so rurally throughout the state. There are seven federally recognized Indian reservations. Actually, we just added one to make 8, but there is no land federally recognized for that 8th reservation that I'm talking about. So anyway, we really want to through Museum as Megaphone, reach a lot more people outside of the Missoula County community. So this is our way to do it. We do bus in participants to our programs that are held here at the Missoula Art Museum as well, up to a 70-mile radius. We always, of course, think in person is a better experience for individuals to connect with the artwork. But I tell you, working with Inspired Classroom to produce Museum as Megaphone has been the next best thing. So it's really helped us to market throughout the state to teachers, to organizations, to tribal communities, so that we can connect individuals to contemporary artwork. And we have a very large, largest in the state, American Indian art collection here at the Missoula Art Museum. So if we feel it's extremely important and our responsibility to share our collection with and our exhibitions with these tribal communities too, to amplify the voices of these American Indian artists, and to also help people understand those communities. They can become an artist too, you know, and to have role models to connect people that way. So yeah, I'm just kind of rambling, but go ahead, Jamie.
It's great. Well, I'm gonna jump in here really quickly because you said some really interesting things about sort of why it's important for you guys to have a virtual component to these programs. And I'm hearing that it's to reach other people. What does the program look like, even just in person in some of your art education, just to give people a feel for the types of programs that you've historically been delivering? And then we can move into what it looks like on the virtual side. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just go ahead. Jenny, you just chime in and cut me off whenever. We have our fall 5th grade art experience where we bring in 5th graders to we invite 5th graders from all Missoula County schools and within a 70-mile radius, and we provide bus support. And we partner with the Missoula County Public School to do this in Missoula County specifically. But each day a 5th grade class comes from a different school throughout the fall months, and it actually goes through January typically. And just before the pandemic hit, we actually launched this program for the first time virtually. And then the pandemic hit and we thought, well, we kind of know how to do this now, so let's just keep doing it. And so last year we launched the 5th grade art experience all through the Museum as Megaphone program. And so that's one of our largest education programs. We also do, we have throughout the course of the school year, we have our teen program is called TAP, Teen Art Project. And we have adult programs, and those are offered after school and during the day and on weekends. We have Saturday family workshops. We do, in the summer months, we're just kind of wrapping up a big summer where we had a Teen Art Project summer program for high school students. And we also conducted an art reach program where we work with community organizations as partners that offer camps for big groups of kids throughout the summer. And these are full day camps. We have partnered with these organizations to provide the art component, the art making component. So art viewing and then making. So we did that this summer. And this summer we did kind of, because of the pandemic, and last summer as well, we did more of a hybrid scenario. So some virtual, some handing off project boxes so that they could do their art making back at their camp. And then they did tours here at the museum in smaller numbers. And then
I want to pause you for a second.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I have a big wonder for the folks that are out there listening. How many of you have in-person programs? And this is a 2-part question, and you can type it in the chat. So first part of the question is, how many of you have in-person programs, and how many of you have tried to go virtual? So I'm curious to see kind of where everybody's falling on this one. And I know, like, I have a teenager that just participated in the teenage art program, the TAP program, and the programs at the art museum are first class. They are really amazing.
It's been fun.
So we'll see. Well, we'll see. So you can go ahead and put in the chat if you have in-person programming or virtual or both. And then I want to just keep us, for the sake of time, keep us kind of moving through. So
Absolutely.
Jenny, I want to direct this question at you. I'm really curious because I know I've worked pretty closely with you on creating and taking what you've built in person and moving that to a virtual experience. But what were some of the pain points as you were first starting to think about, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? What are the things that just kept you awake at night?
Yeah, well, I mean, there were a lot, but I would say they all really came back to just trial and error, getting feedback, and, changing things in the moment. I feel like what really worked for us with Inspired Classroom was, constantly asking teachers after every single iteration or interaction, how was that for you? What can we do better? And then we were able to make changes in real time. So for instance, when we did Museum as Megaphone during the pandemic, and suddenly 100% of participation was virtual, and we'd never done that before, and it was all happening really fast, we conceived it to be more like the same length or the same amount of stuff as the in-person program. But what we learned right away was that the teachers were like, that's too much. It's too much, which when it's online, it needs to be less, more condensed, more targeted. But we need to expand the art making part. So we were able to just jump in and make those changes right away. So that's one thing that I would say about most of the pain points came from building it as we were using it. And the solutions to all of that was just getting feedback ongoing and making those changes, and not waiting till the end of the program and going, oh, next time we'll introduce more hands-on art making. No, we just did it like right in the moment.
And I know that was really well received by a lot of teachers. Would you, just so folks understand, sort of talk a little bit about the components of what goes into Museum as Megaphone? Like, I know there's the live day, but just all those pieces, the platform.
Sure. Yeah, so with in-person fifth grade art experience, we always had a packet, and then the packet sort of became like a Google Doc, and it became some videos, and it became more technological in the last few years. And so we still wanted to have that for the teachers, like here's everything that's coming so that you know what to anticipate. Who are the artists? Who's the focus artist? What's the medium? What the project will be like, because the project that they do is connected to the artist that we're focusing on. And so all of that, and at the same time, professional development for the teachers, so that our hope is that they're going to watch us model these ways of engaging with artworks and then be able to do it on their own. So we use something called the inquiry method, which I'm sure is familiar to everyone here, which is like VTS, like visual thinking strategies, but just a little bit more open-ended, a little bit more. We always start with notice and wonder, and then we move into a couple of more targeted questions. So the teachers always, they see us do this, and then they realize, oh, it's not that hard, just to let kids have their own experience with the art. And it's actually easier for me as a teacher to let it be a little bit more student driven. So we always want to put in that professional development layer and make that really transparent to teachers, so that they realize that they're learning something too. And not just learning art content or artist bio or art history topics, but also learning some teaching skills, some best practices with engaging with artworks. So I guess the thing is, we have those components. We have the sort of like the pre-work, the orientation part, then students come to the museum. They come through a Zoom meeting, and it looks very much like this. Kay and I are usually in the galleries with Allie and Kathleen and with the artist, if that's possible. And then the students are there. We can see them just like we can see you here, and they can ask questions in real time, and we can respond in real time. And that part was was really the most special part, especially for I mean, we have many schools in Montana that are one-room schoolhouses that are in extremely remote situations where they're not going to run into an artist or a museum, unless something really amazing happens. So so this was a great way for them to actually feel like they came to the museum, to understand what we do, to meet the artist, to actually ask him questions. And one thing that happened in the moment too was I had a little whiteboard and I sort of wrote down a lot of their comments. You know how we do in the classroom, like we'll be writing things down and transcribing so they can remember, and then showing them the whiteboard at the end of the session so that they could be like, oh yeah, all that happened like 20 minutes ago. And so, yeah, so that's it. And they made art during their virtual session, which was 30 minutes. I think we ended up expanding it to 45 minutes at the teacher's request so that more kids could ask questions. And that there could be the hands-on art making. And then we also had a teaching artist record some demos. I think it was actually me this year, record some demos that they could do the art making project with simple materials they had in their home or in their classroom, because some of our students this year were calling in from home, 100% remote learning. Some were in the classroom with their teacher. So we couldn't really deliver materials, far away. We did do some drop off with materials within Missoula, but we just kept the project to something that you could do with a pencil and paper. And that really helped.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was,
I was, oh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna, I think that's great. That was a nice overview, Jenny. I was just gonna say, how we work with Inspired Classrooms specifically, because we do work on some virtual, we do put courses onto virtual platforms that are not Inspired Classroom. So I just kind of wanted to make a distinction, and we don't have the capacity to do the interactive live days. And we don't have, we've been able to work with Inspired Marketing to help us with marketing too, to how we reach teachers throughout the state. And that's been super helpful. But specifically, like with Inspired Classrooms, they provide the platform where we can, which is a very user-friendly platform where we can launch the course that goes to all the teachers in schools throughout the state. And then, they can go to teachers throughout the United States if you want them to, but we're just really trying to reach the state capacity first, and then we can go beyond. And then also they are technological gurus, and they have a lot of great equipment where they were able to set up the day before. We do a full day of live, 45-minute live sessions streamed to classrooms. So we're getting to interact firsthand with teachers and students, mostly students, but the teachers kind of get everything set. And the schools just have to have internet access. So that has been a pretty key component, I think, to working with Inspired Classrooms, is because the students get to interact directly with an artist and ask questions back and forth, and then do some art making. So
thanks, Kay. So I have a question for everybody, including for Kay and Jenny. What are the things that you really like that work with distance programming? Because I'm reading through some of these chat messages on the side, and it looks like everybody's dipping their toes into that. And so we can go through and say, like, what are the things that have worked this year? And then of course I'm gonna next question, just to prep you, are what are the things that you're still having trouble with? Because I want to make this, I want to make the things that you wished you could do, because I want to make this a conversation where maybe we're giving each other some ideas and helping over some of those blocks. So let's go ahead and unmute. And it's a small crew, so I'm just going to let you jump in when you're ready.
So I'll just jump in. One thing that's been nice for me going virtual is that I don't have the travel time. And that's good for air quality, right? Because there were car emissions in the air. It's nice to be able to, when you have to go to an event and it's virtual, or do a classroom visit that's virtual, you just turn on your camera, turn on your laptop, click the Zoom meeting or whatever the invite is, and you're there. So that's been nice.
Definitely. Definitely.
Well, I think, like Jenny, I mean, we don't have any virtual programs right now. We need them. Basically, I am the only full-time staff. So I'm running the museum, collections, education, everything. I do have a volunteer who's a retired college physics professor, and he's been pretty helpful, but he's not really great with kids. I love him, but his patience with kids is could be better. So, I mean, I think what Jenny said, which is what appeals to me, is that my time is so constrained that if I could do it virtual from the museum and not have to take a day off and go someplace, that would be really helpful to me.
Absolutely. Let's see, Sarah, or we have Melinda. Do either of you want to chime in?
Sure, yeah. I'm chiming in from Boulder, Colorado, with the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. And we have some partnerships with libraries, and we're doing adult programming as well as school programming. But what was great with these library programs, we started to get regulars coming back each month. We did monthly programs focused on some of our exhibitions, and I made tons of art kits. And so folks would go to the libraries, pick up an art kit, and then chime in to our live Zoom program. And we'd make art together. We'd look at the exhibitions, and it was actually a fairly intimate experience because you're all here on this little screen. It was a group kind of this size, or maybe sometimes we'd get up to 10 people. But so that was a surprisingly special part of going virtual. What is much more difficult is when half the people are on Zoom and half the people are in a room somewhere and they're looking at a screen. And so you can't see everyone, you can't hear everyone. I did one program, my boss and I were calling it like the Wild West, because every single time we went and did a program, it was like, well, this time I tried this, and this time we did it this way. And so I did this one program with an assisted living facility, because we also have a Spark program, which targets people with dementia and early onset Alzheimer's. And so the activities director had the residents in a room, and I could never see them. The room was dark. They sat in this dark room, and I was up on the screen, and I could see like the glow in the room on the screen, but it was sort of like one of those, you know, Bueller, are you out there kind of thing. I had no interaction. It was very, very strange, but I, you know, just kept a good sense of humor about it. So.
Been there, done that. That's a tough one. Oh my goodness. Oh, wild. Sarah, do you want to add anything to the conversation?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've had some success with doing adult programming virtually with some of our lecture series this year. And I think we'll do a hybrid option so that people, because of that convenience factor, it's nice to be able to get both people in the room and virtually. But what we're working on right now is our converting our what used to be in classroom educational outreach program to a virtual environment. And we're trying to figure out how to monetize it, what platform to use to host the program, those sort of logistical issues. And then just, you know, figuring out sort of modules and little educational lessons that will be part of it rather than just an hour presentation type program.
Well, Sarah, will you continue to do in-person? Is this in addition to the in-person, or is it separate?
No, it's going to take
Okay.
the
In
place
lieu
of
of?
in-person right now.
It will.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we're going to, we do surveys and then reevaluate it's a 2-year cycle. So
Gotcha. Yeah. Great.
Can I add one thing, Allie, to that, the question you just asked?
Yes.
Is that one thing we had a lot of good feedback for the virtual programs is, as someone else just mentioned, we have creative aging and we serve groups with aphasia, and our special needs population has just been really grateful and receptive to the online learning. So for that group, I think it's just wonderful to think about how much more accessible things are. I mean, I kind of even reject the hierarchy that like it's better in person. Yeah, it's better in person if you don't have any special needs or obstacles, you know, to being in person. But if you have anxiety or you have PTSD or you're a veteran or you have aphasia, it actually is much nicer to come, you know, from your safe space and engage virtually. So that's really been a shift in my thinking, is to think of it not so much as like better or worse, but just different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
just to follow up on that comment, I would agree with you. We were able to reach some special populations this year that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to. We did a virtual class presentation at the juvenile detention facility.
There you go.
So that is an audience we would not have been able to reach in person.
I love hearing these stories. It's pretty inspiring, you guys. So there's something that I kind of like to do with folks. It's called my I Wish, I Wonder, and I Like. So it's another series of questions. So let's just start with, what are your wishes for the upcoming school year? I'm going to take a moment, or the upcoming year, not just school year.
It can be
Totally different. And it can be about your programming. It can be about whatever you're thinking. You can take a minute to think about it too.
Do you want us to type it in, Allie, or say it out loud?
If you want to type it in, that's fine. If anybody wants to share it, they can do that as well. And I always like to, I feel like one of the always so afraid of dead air in Zoom meetings when you're doing programming. It's okay to have some quiet thinking and reflection time.
I guess my wishes would be that we actually had some virtual program. I mean, to be quite honest, our in-person programming work as well. And it's kind of harder. I mean, with the art museums, it's great because you guys can do art-based projects. I mean, we can do some art-based projects with the trains, but it's the project thing, having some simple, engaging, educational projects is where I'm stuck at this point. So my wish is engaging projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Linda's wishing that she'll be able to see what will happen with in-person learning. I know, don't we all? It feels like, I felt like we were doing so well. And then the last 2 weeks I'm going, oh no, here we go again.
I have the same wish. I wish I knew what was going to happen with COVID, because we were scheduling an in-person event for the end of August and some in-person meetings. And now our positivity rates are going up and our county leadership is, masked, no one can go to the break room again, so, and it's masks even for the vaccinated. So it's really hard to know, what do I market to schools? What should I be focusing on? and where are we going to be next month?
Mhm.
I know. I worry, with not knowing what the schools are going to do. And we're supposed to launch our 5th grade art experience, in person and hybrid. I'm hybrid. So it's in person and museum as megaphone. And what if we have to pivot last minute and don't have much time to plan, to do a virtual program? So it's tricky right now.
Yeah. But Kay, one of the things that you guys have going for you is you have the framework set up. And so when it comes to pivoting, it's sometimes easier than having to put everything on in the last minute and make that big pivot. And so that's one of my wishes, is that I feel like a lot of people got to the point where they were so done with everything, so done with it all. But there was a lot of good. And I've been listening to all these amazing good things. I'm looking at Jenny's comment as well in the chat. I want to just take the really good things and not throw them out this next year, and remember that we can actually reach different groups. We can reach people that are not within our, that in-person radius of who can come and visit us. And there's some really cool things that can start to happen. So that's my wish for the school year. So the next question is, what wonders do you have about virtual programming? And those wonders could be, I wonder how to do it. Or it could be something very specific, like, I wonder if we could do it this way.
I wonder what the best webcam.
I wonder what the best webcam is. I mean, there's lots of wonders. So we'll just take a minute to think about and reflect sort of on what are your wonders. All right, any wonders? Anybody want to start us off? And
Yeah, how to even get started on it. I mean,
and if anybody wants to throw in a, hey, I can help, go ahead.
Zoom's definitely been great this year, just for our board meetings, and, the guys are really embracing it. For them to embrace technology is amazing. So I can see how it could work, but how do you get it out there? How do you, how do you not, I mean, what do we do?
Yeah, I agree, Anne. My wonder is kind of all about resistance. It's like, how do we overcome all the different layers of resistance, like in the teachers, in ourselves, in our museums, just in the wider world. I mean, all the resistance to the obstacles within school culture for engaging with these kinds of ideas. And I feel like we're still at the very beginning stages. Like what even is the team? Like what even is the division of responsibility if you're lucky enough to have a team? And I know that that's one thing Inspired Classroom really provided Kay and me, is the technology piece that we were just barely figuring out. So lots of my questions to Allie and Kathleen are like, can we do this? Can we do that? And so, putting together your team, whatever that looks like, if it's the software that you need, like Kay mentioned, we use some other platforms too. Like we tried Teachable, we tried Moodle. I've had experience with lots of platforms. I really like Inspired Classroom because we have Allie and Kathleen and they're people.
We like you too, Jenny.
How many times did I text you that first iteration? It was like every day, multiple times a day.
Oh, but that's so good. And we learn from you guys too. And that's really what's important for us, is that as we're building and developing, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that fits the needs of the museums and the organizations that we're building this for, and that also works with the school system and the learners that we're building this for. So it's always a fun juggling game that I enjoy.
Well, no, I think that's, Jenny, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is hands down the difference between just going straight platform or working with you all where you provide a human contact, and it's like technology support, I mean, you do so much more than technology support, but it's a human that I can talk to quickly. We can text, we can call, and those issues don't come up all the time, but they just come up, and you need someone to be able to, peel through the problem with. But anyway.
Yeah. And even like the creative questions, like I would be like, well, we would normally do this. We would normally sit in front of the artwork for 15 minutes and have a conversation. How can we do that online? Like saying what I wanted to have happen, and then having Allie and Kathleen sort of help me figure out how to make that a reality. Mm-hmm. But I also want to just reiterate again, for those of you who are just starting out, the number one feedback we got from teachers was less is more. You don't need to have 8 or 10 or 12 modules. Really, it's looking and making. And that's what they want. It's just a super simple, like I did so much extra work that I didn't have to do at the beginning. Because I was thinking like a course, a full course. And it really, all they wanted was just a couple of modules. So keep it simple for yourself, make it easy.
Yeah. Teachers want simple. When they're in the classroom, especially during the pandemic, my goodness, they were so, they just didn't have much time. So.
And Melinda, I see you're wondering too, if teachers just still want to utilize virtual programs. I'm going to respond to that. We just had a big teacher workshop. Was it last week, 2 weeks ago? And what we are hearing is that suddenly they're very comfortable with technology, where before they were a little bit hesitant to jump in. Now they're starting to see, this is something and I'm not afraid of it anymore. And so we've broken down that barrier, which I think is really wonderful for some of them, not for all of them, but for some of them. And so I think you're going to get a mix is what I'm hearing. You're going to have people that are really excited about those virtual programs, especially the ones that want to engage, but might not have the ability to come in person. I'm not afraid. And Kathleen, I know you want to, I'm going to turn.
I'm just jumping in here.
You're excited.
Well, as educators ourselves, both Allie and I are teachers. And when we started this company years ago, we started it on 3 principles. One was equity of access, and that's what the technology allows you to do, is get out to more people that wouldn't have the experience. One is authentic learning experiences, which people like Kay and Jenny bring to the table that we couldn't bring because we're not art educators. Well, Allie is, but we're not in the museum world. But then the third thing was support for educators. And that's what makes a difference. And not only, like Jenny and Kay were saying, not just support for educators, but support for informal educators. And Allie and I look at ourselves as translators. So we've got that training in pedagogy. We've got that understanding of how to take content and break it down in ways that make sense for a target audience of learners. And what we have found is, to your question, Melinda, you've got to build in the support for educators. And that's what the MAM has also done. They've also included in everything they do professional development, because if you can give that support to educators, then they start to have the confidence to use it again. And there's nothing worse as a teacher to stand in front of a class and think you've got the technology ready and then everything fails and you'll never do it again. So having that support and providing that quick turnaround, like Jenny said, changing it up a little bit or whatever needs to happen to really make it something that teachers can do with confidence is important. And once, and you know, then it's you get converts and then you get a few more converts. And so it's something that takes time to develop, I would say, right? But we've been doing it for 8 years, so. And we employ teachers to help us who have been doing it a lot longer than that, who, when I say doing it, saying building distance learning experiences that are really, really high quality. So, yeah. Well, anything else? Allie, how did you want to?
Well, I thought if we wanted to go with any other questions or comments.
Yeah, go for it. Just unmute your microphones and talk away or put it in the chat. Any other questions?
I'd love to share one more thing while people are popping questions in, which is back to the comment someone made about teaching into the dark room. I really wanted to address teaching into the void, because in my experience, it does feel a little bit like that all the time when you're teaching in the virtual space. But I encourage everybody, I mean, what I kind of like came to is you just do it anyway. You're recording it probably, and there's an asynchronous aspect where you could still share it in the future, but also just assume that somebody is listening and somebody is getting something out of it, because 9 times out of 10, even if all the cameras are off or you don't have the ability to see the participants, it's still going through. So that's just my, like, as teaching online, like that's what I have learned, which is just act like they're there with you and just forge ahead.
That's excellent. You never know what's going to come out of your experiences. I love that, Jenny. Just forge ahead.
Just forge ahead.
That'll be our new tagline for the Oh, funny. I put both Allie and my emails in the chat. I just want to let you know that we're, like I said, we're trying to build a community of practice for all of us to kind of get together and have a sounding board. We'd love to hear from you all, you know, if you want to talk a little bit more about your specific situations or, you know, what needs you might have that we might be able to help with. We also have another mentor meetup coming on September 14th at noon Mountain Time. And our special guest will be Nick Wetherington from the Spectrum Discovery Museum. And he's going to be talking about using Google Earth in a kiosk display, and also how to extend that content into classrooms. And we'll tell you about that part of it from our point of view. We also have a monthly newsletter called Mentor Map. And so I will send you information about how you can sign up for that. And we have a blog called Mentorship. Get it? Navigating Education in the 21st Century. Because we're cheesy like that. So any final comments or questions that you have, either Jenny and Kay or anybody else? This is called wait time in teaching.
I know.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. If nobody has anything else, then we'd love to continue the conversation. You'll be getting an email from us, and we also hope you'll join us next month, September 14th at noon Mountain Time. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
hosting
everybody.
the meeting.
Nice meeting you, Jenny.
Bye.
Nice to meet you too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I can't.
Stop.